Love always takes responsibility. In fact, it's the only thing that love takes. Fear takes everything else.
Right.
As soon as we partner with fear, it begins to drain us. In my life, I went through a process of losing everything, and I didn't know why it was happening. The only way that faith grows and strengthens is through surrender.
Yeah.
So it's actually through laying down our control.
Right.
That our faith grows.
Perfect. Yeah.
And that's the scary part that people don't like.
Hey, so this is going to be a very special podcast. We have Brad back, Brad Lively, and he's an executive business coach. Last time he came and talked about fear. He has a book coming out in the next year or so. And so we just want to hear more about the subject. And he has a great message today. So glad to have you, Brad.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Last time we spoke like broadly about fear. But now as you've been developing this book, I know you've been exploring how it operates in basically every area of our life. But right now, I think we want to hone in on interpersonal relationships. So whether that's romantic, friendship, or even, a business working relationship.
Yeah. It's our main struggle in life, I think.
Right.
And it really requires, I think a lot of times it requires a lot of pain because it's hard for us to see what we can't see.
Right.
And pain is great at making us aware of issues that we need to pay attention to, because life is a mirror.
Yeah.
And relationships are a powerful mirror. And a lot of times we lose the power of that mirror because we don't like to take responsibility for what's happening.
Right.
And fear is very good at coercing us into blame. And blame is how things stay hidden. So fear works really hard at helping you justify why something's not your fault.
Right.
And in a relationship, that basically feels like betrayal. So when you blame someone, you come up with an argument about why it's their fault, why it's not your fault. And when you bring that to someone in a relationship, that hurts.
Yeah.
And it also really makes them feel like they're alone.
Right.
Like, we're not a team.
We're not a team.
Yeah.
You just turned on me.
Yeah.
Basically. And I guess I got to figure this out. It's my fault. And
Right.
so it really works against connection.
Yeah.
And intimacy.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I probably said it last time, but I'm going to say it again, is love always takes responsibility. In fact, it's the only thing that love takes. Fear takes everything else.
Right.
Because fear is a thief. And so fear is always working to rob us of intimacy, rob us of connection.
Right.
Rob us of resources. And so I just want to encourage people in relationship, whether it be business relationship, intimate relationship, familial relationship, when you're dealing with an issue that's a struggle, the best way that you can approach it is, how can I take responsibility for this?
Right.
How can I show up differently?
Yeah.
Even if it is the other person's fault, like really, like they made the mistake, how can you show up differently to help them overcome whatever they're struggling with?
To encourage, to inspire.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you think about Gideon. Gideon was hiding, threshing the wheat. He was in a wine press. He was scared of the Midianites.
Yeah.
And he wasn't operating in his identity. He wasn't being courageous. He wasn't basically doing anything right, except he was out there working.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely wasn't God's fault that they're in this situation, right? They're in the situation because of their disobedience. They disobeyed for a long time,
Right.
and God was like, all right, it's time for some discipline. So it wasn't his fault. It was all Israel's fault. And he's got this guy hiding, running from his calling and his purpose. And the angel of the Lord shows up, and he doesn't blame. He never blames. He never says, you're doing this wrong, and this wrong. You need to fix this and this and this. He comes in and he says, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. So he shows up in love.
Right.
He shows up like encouraging this man who's obviously discouraged. He shows up speaking life over the situation and not death.
Right.
He shows up with prophetic insight in how he can pull this man out of the pit and encourage him into his position, into his identity, into his function. I think a lot of women are struggling with men nowadays because of identity. Most men are struggling to figure out who they are and why they're here. And the way that women are combating that is by shame and disgrace and disrespect and dishonor, trying to shock them into getting it right.
Try to motivate them
Yeah,
through
trying to
pressure, through adding.
Yeah.
Through fear.
Through fear.
Through fear.
They're partnering with fear to try and do something that only love can do. And love is the only force that can pull us out of the pit that fear taught us how to dig. And that's exactly what the angel of the Lord did with Gideon. He showed up doing what love does, which is encourage. It empowers.
Right.
It trusts. The Lord showed up saying basically Gideon, I trust you to lead this nation with me out of this tyrannical oppression that they're in. And that's empowering. That's that feels good.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do for each other in relationship is show up with trust. And not trust, it's a trust that comes from the Creator. I trust in what you made.
Right.
That's basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not like I trust you because you're infallible.
Right.
As a person, no. I just trust that the grace God has given you, the ability he's designed you with, is enough to do what God has called you to do. And that feels good.
Yeah.
That's motivating.
Oh, yeah.
And even if we don't believe it at first, if we keep experiencing that atmosphere and that energy and those words, over time, it will transform us.
It will, yeah.
It'll shift our vibration, right? Because that's the power of our words. Our words actually have the ability to create and to heal something.
Right.
And that means vibration.
Yeah.
So we actually, if we bring the right vibration over and over and over again into someone's life, they begin to tune their vibration to ours.
Right.
Like an instrument.
Yeah.
And so our words can actually retune somebody's energy from toxic to healthy. But that's a very intentional thing that we have to show up with.
Yeah.
And we have to trust and believe that if I show up like this enough, it's going to transform the entire atmosphere.
Yeah, you might have 3 different interactions, but you might not remember what they said, but you do remember how it felt.
Yeah.
I walked away from an interaction and I felt puffed up.
Yeah.
I felt ready to do whatever.
Yeah.
Or I walked away from that interaction and it made me feel, it zapped something from me. I felt a little weaker. I felt a little drained.
Defeated.
Yeah, defeated.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's the difference between love and fear. As soon as we partner with fear, it begins to drain us. Like, that's the goal
Right.
of fear, is to drain you of all life and all resources.
Right.
And so if what you're involved in is draining you, then you know that in some way you've partnered with fear
Right.
in that situation. And so God set it up so that we could be aware
Yeah.
of when we're partnering with the enemy and when we're partnering with him. Because when we're partnering with love, it fills you.
Right.
Completely opposite reward.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can be honest with ourselves and what's going on in our life, we can begin to take steps in the right direction to heal whatever's broken. And I think in my life, I went through a process of losing everything, and I didn't know why it was happening when I was in the process.
Right.
The marriage wasn't doing well. Finances were always a struggle, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and I would justify it and say like, "Oh, this is just what it's like to be in the wilderness."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not realizing that you're in the wilderness because of foolishness.
Right.
I was like, "Oh, this is just part of the journey," you know? And it really took a divorce and constant financial difficulty for me to realize, oh, I'm the problem.
Right.
This is my responsibility. And something needs to change,
Yeah.
you know? And it brought me into this place where my heart was finally able to repent.
Mm.
I mean, a lot of times when you confront somebody, and I think this is why it's important to confront people when God wants to confront them and not when you feel like it,
Right. Right.
because I wasn't ready. It took a good 20 years to get me ready. 20 years to get me ready, to get my heart ready to be able to hear the truth.
Right.
Because I was just like Pharaoh, who wouldn't let the Israelites go. You know, I experienced plague after plague after plague of hardship, and I still didn't get it. You know, we're thinking like, Pharaoh, you're an idiot. Like, you know, you're losing constantly, and you're not getting it. And the crazy thing is, like, I'm 49 now, and I finally understand, oh, I was just like him.
Right.
You know, we don't ever want to see ourselves in that type of light. But it was also liberating to know
Yeah.
that the heart is what really directs our path in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Pharaoh's heart is what brought all of the junk that he had to face in his life.
Right.
And eventually it led him into his death. And so that has really brought me into a deep like dive on the heart and how powerful the heart is and how reproductive it is in our lives.
Right.
So, you know, yes, the womb naturally reproduces offspring, but it's the heart that spiritually reproduces offspring.
Yeah.
So in our families, the heart that we raise our families with is going to be what reproduces after our own kind.
Right. Wow.
So if your heart
Yeah.
is afraid, you're going to reproduce offspring of fear.
Fear and anxiety. And yeah.
If your heart is full of love and trust, you're going to reproduce bold and courageous.
Right.
And so the heart is the most powerful reproductive organ on the planet.
Yeah.
And that's why both kingdoms, darkness and light, that's where they sow their seed.
Yeah.
Is the heart.
Yeah. Right.
Because they both know
what gets in there is going to be reproduced.
exactly.
Yeah. And magnified. And
exactly.
yeah.
And that's why, Satan doesn't have to do much. If he can just plant a seed of doubt or discouragement, he knows if he can water it and keep it nourished,
right,
it's going to grow and it'll overtake the whole family.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing that you touched on when you were saying, oh, I now see maybe the parts of my story or in my life where I was acting more like Pharaoh. And I feel that, because I used to compare myself, you always want to compare yourself to Bible heroes, and I'd compare myself to King David and all these other people who did great things for God. But then I started seeing, the aspects of my heart and in my life and in my decisions where I was like, oh, I was being more like King Saul here. Or I was being more like this character here, or I was being more, and you start, it's a humbling experience, really. It's really what kind of opens your mind up and helps you say, okay, well, I know how to shift now. I know how to pivot now, because I do see the patterns that are negative inside of me that aren't producing good fruit.
And it really creates in us the ability to, I think, really minister the love that God has called us to minister. It's, the saying, take the plank out of your eye.
Right. Right.
So that you can see clearly to help your neighbor remove the splinter.
Yes.
Yeah.
It also, I feel like what you said just brought more context to, the phrase, grow your faith and starve your doubt.
Yeah.
And that's a heart. It's not a mind.
Right.
It's a heart issue. Right. I never thought of it that way till now. I'm always like, I can't be so afraid. But what am I, with my actions, what am I feeding?
Yeah.
Am I feeding my fears and anxiety, or am I feeding my faith? And, the one you feed, is the one that grows, right?
Yeah.
They said, which wolf is gonna grow better, the one in the dark or the one in the light? And someone said, oh, the one in the light. He said, the one you feed.
Yeah.
So, I think that's really with everything, even how we say you get better at not what you love, but what you do.
Yeah.
That's what you're feeding.
Bill Johnson said it perfectly as far as what it takes to grow your faith. We like to we like to do it through things that we can control.
Yeah.
Like going to church, reading our Bible, praying, worshiping. Like we can control when we do all those things and for how long, right? But the only way that faith grows and strengthens is through surrender.
Yeah.
So it's actually through laying down our control.
Right.
That our faith grows.
Perfect. Yeah.
And that's the scary part that people don't like. That's what we fight to maintain as humans.
Right.
We want to be in control, and that's the whole rebellion that caused all the chaos in the universe. Was a created being wanted to take control and no longer surrender.
Right.
And we see that's what Eve struggled with.
Right.
Oh, I can basically be my own God.
Right.
So I can be in control, And you see, like, even I've been around a 2-year-old a lot lately. Like they love to be in control.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to teach them.
Yeah.
It's just, it's there. And we'll play this game where he touches me and I go to sleep. And then he wakes me up. And then he's controlling the whole thing.
Right.
And he just loves it, And that's the way it is in relationship. Like,
yeah.
That's the downfall of relationship, is when you're fighting each other for control.
Right.
And everything that you do that's controlling, it teaches the other person that you don't trust them and that you don't love them.
Mm. You know, you think that's where that little kid light switch fixation comes from? They're like, all that power.
Yeah. I mean, it's
in
in us.
simple terms.
It's
you
in
know,
us.
I just thought about that. That's the first thing that hit my brain when you said that. I was like, that's why.
I wanted to jump or have you dive maybe a little bit more into frequency, because it really is. I mean, it's extremely interesting if you walk into someone's physical space and you can tell if it's just like kind of like a pleasing atmosphere, and it's like decision by decision, posture by posture. What you're doing is really creating an atmosphere inside,
Yeah.
how a father speaks to their kid, how the mother interacts with the father, and vice versa. It really does create. You can like walk into someone's house and be a little bit more tense.
Yeah.
You'd be like, "There's
Yeah.
tension here,"
Yeah.
or you walk into someone's house and you're like, "This is peaceful." You're like, I don't know why. You can't really put your finger on it, but you walk in and you're like, "This is peace resides here."
That's so true. And that's culture ultimately comes from the heart. So the beliefs of the heart are going to fill the atmosphere. And so you can teach your kids things that you've never said.
Right.
You can teach your kid that they're not enough,
Right.
but you never tell them that.
Wow.
But it's in everything that you do.
Yeah.
And it's in the things that you say, but it's more undercurrent. It's not the actual words that you use.
Right.
And so culture comes from what we believe about ourselves and God.
Right.
And so if a parent struggles to believe that they're enough, they're going to teach their kids to struggle with the same thing.
Right.
And that's just how it is, because the heart reproduces after its own kind. The heart is only able to teach what it believes. So you can want the world for your kids,
Yeah.
but you're going to give them the world that's within you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's what you're going to pass on.
Right.
That's what they will inherit. And so it's really important that we deal with our own issues so that we can pass on victory to our children.
Yeah.
So that we can pass on love. Like not, and I think that's a big problem too. Satan has done such a good job of redefining love.
Redefining it. Yeah. What is it really? Yeah.
Yeah. He's changed the definition of what love is to a definition of control.
Yeah.
When love can only be defined as trust. And so that's really hurt us as a culture and society. Because if you believe that controlling your child is love, well, then you're passing on control to your child and calling it love. And so people are going to lose faith in love. And ultimately, that's the enemy's goal.
Right.
Is to teach us through deception and perversion that God can't be trusted.
Right.
That he should not be trusted, because God is love. So what do you think Satan wants to pervert the most?
Right.
Love.
Love.
Because God is love. And so if people begin to have this misunderstanding of what love is, they're going to have that same misunderstanding towards God and who he is, and they're not going to want anything to do with him.
Right.
It's like a PK.
Yeah. Yeah.
That grows up in a home that uses God to control them, because they're able to leverage the child's fear of God,
right,
to get them to do what they want. And so whenever someone is leveraged by God to do what they don't want to do, then they don't want to be with him.
Right.
It's like being in a relationship where the person's always using fear to leverage you
Yeah.
to do what they want you to do. You start pushing away.
Pushing away. Yeah.
You might live in the same house,
Yeah.
but you're in different states as
Right.
far as your hearts are concerned. Like fear, like the heart repels fear.
Mm.
It repels control. It does it in different ways.
Right.
You know, maybe it repels it through compliance and pretending,
Right.
or it's going to repel it through rebellion and fighting. Depends on the person.
And the compliance and pretending, really, I mean, that can snap in all kinds of ways. That's why
Yeah.
people can be in a relationship and they're like, oh, they started this situation on the side, and how'd this situation start? But it's like you guys weren't connecting anymore.
Yeah.
It's not all good.
Well, like me, I could have easily blamed everything on my ex because she asked for the divorce, and
Right.
but looking back, I was the reason. Like, yeah, she has her own stuff to deal with too.
Right,
but I
right.
can't sit here and it's not going to do me any good
No.
to rehearse her faults
Right.
Mm.
Right.
in my mind.
Yeah.
That's not gonna that's not gonna cause me to have success later.
Right.
It's when I turn inward and be like, what part did I play?
Yeah.
How did I not love her like you love the church?
Right.
You know, how did I let my fears poison our intimacy?
Right. Yeah.
And
And
but
we've talked about this off camera before, but I mean that was like a big moment for me and my own divorce. Where I could really start looking inwardly and say, like, what could I have done differently? How did I not, honor the marriage and honor God in the way that I was called to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted you brought up frequency. So our sound is created from our heart, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah.
Because out of the overflow of the heart, the
Just
mouth speaks.
Yeah.
So that means the sound that comes from us is determined by the motives of our heart.
Right.
And motives motivate. Motives are where we get our motion from. It's what carries us in the direction that we're going. And the motives determine our destiny. Because if you have an impure motive, you're going to have a bad destiny.
Right. Bad results.
Bad result. Where you have a good motive, it's going to take you to a good place. So if you've been to a bad place in your life, your heart is what took you there.
Yeah.
If you wound up in a good place in life, your heart took you there as well.
Right. Right.
And so vibration causes movement. And so our hearts are vibrating. Everything vibrates.
Right.
Everything has vibration.
Yeah.
This couch has vibration. Everything is vibrating at a certain frequency. And so our hearts are vibrating at a certain frequency based on what we believe,
Mhm.
based on the belief we got from either kingdom. So each kingdom is like a manufacturing center of vibration. And the vibration is distributed through seeds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So a seed that comes from the kingdom of light manufacturing center is going to vibrate at love's frequency. And it's going to produce light and life.
Mm.
And a seed that comes from darkness is going to vibrate at fear's frequency. And it's going to produce death
Right.
and darkness. So the seeds are constantly trying to be planted in our heart. And the only time a seed is planted in a heart is when it's believed.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
So if you think about the parable of the sower, the hard heart, right? The seed landed on the hard heart and it didn't penetrate.
because it couldn't receive it. It couldn't believe it.
It didn't. Jesus said the heart did not understand it.
Mm,
So you're only going to believe what makes sense to you,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So if you're trained in fear, then love doesn't make sense. Fear only makes sense to fear. So it's like if you're trying to explain how God works
Right.
to somebody, that
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
they're going to be like, what?
Yeah.
That's nonsense.
Right. Yeah.
That's crazy, you know? But if you were to come and explain a way of the world to them, they're like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Right.
So we believe what makes sense.
Yeah.
And so Satan is always trying to bombard our heart with hurt and pain so that love doesn't make sense, so that we will reject it when it's presented to us.
Right.
And so, but whatever we believe is taken into the heart, and then we can water it and nourish it, and it'll grow.
Right.
But what's growing with the seed? The vibration,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
As the seed gets bigger, the vibration gets
Bigger.
bigger.
Right.
And so you can actually tell somebody's different by the way they talk.
Yeah.
You ever met somebody like that? Like,
Yeah.
have you ever seen that happen?
Right.
Like, God, you used to be like this, so pessimistic, so blah, blah, blah. But now you're just like the most positive, encouraging person. Well, their sound changed
Right.
because the seed that was planted changed and began to grow and produce different fruit. And the fruit is the words that you say, the actions that you accomplish, the places that you go. The heart actually takes that vibration into all of your body and produces a different being.
Yeah.
That energy and that vibration that we allow to emit from our being is what reproduces and tunes other hearts
Yeah.
to carry the same vibration.
Like our past pains, our bitterness
Yeah.
is what stops us from receiving it. I think that's a big thing for people, is trying to figure out ways to get past their pain,
Mm-hmm.
to get over their history and not let their history define their present or their future. I personally, anecdotally, with a lot of the relationships I have with other people, friends, and so on and so forth, it seems like that's a big thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we're still being cut. I'm even constantly checking myself to see what areas of my life that I'm allowing the past to kind of dictate my actions.
Yeah.
Because obviously if you hit your head, you don't want to hit your head again. But then oftentimes we're so worried or focused on hitting our head again, we're missing all the opportunities that are right in front of us. So,
Yeah, that's so true. Fear teaches us to avoid,
yeah.
that as a means of coping
Right.
and dealing with. Fear will always try and take you around the problem,
Yeah.
but love takes you straight through it. And it's actually the love that gives you the courage to move past it. It's kind of like the battle's control. So like with David and Goliath, Israel, the nation, the army, was trying to figure out how to stay in control of the fight.
Yeah.
They wanted to fight a fight that they could control the outcome. And because they couldn't feel like they could control the outcome, nobody was stepping up. And so fear was trying to come up with an idea of how to get around this giant. How can we get around this and not have to face it, not have to fight with it, not have to possibly get injured, or killed because everybody was believing that they weren't enough.
Right.
And so I think we do this whenever we face something and it gets the best of us. It's really hard for us to get out of our heads about it.
Yeah.
So we start trying to figure out how to get around it.
Right.
Because it beat us the first time, so I don't feel like I can control the outcome this time. I need to avoid this, right? And we start coming up with strategies and tactics to avoid, to hide, and that keeps us from progressing. It keeps us from actually gaining the victory over this thing that has hurt us.
Right.
And so I think we oftentimes when we do that, we factor out of the situation God. None of Israel factored God into their fighting plan. And so they looked at it with natural eyes, and they were trying to deal with it with natural strategies, But here comes this kid, and his first go-to thing was, God's with me. And God has helped me in the past. So how are you going to develop the victories to draw from if you never get into the fight? Like the reason that David was encouraged to get into the fight was because he drew from past victories where he partnered with God and his gift to overcome the lion and the bear. And so fear's goal is to keep you from experiencing the victory. And God is like, I got you. You probably lost or were hurt the first time because you didn't partner with God. That's usually the missing ingredient.
Yeah.
So we didn't partner with God. We didn't do it God's way. And life got the best of us.
Yeah.
And that's to teach us.
Yeah.
Hey,
Right.
You're cutting out of the equation the answer here, And so all he's trying to do is, hey, come back to me, and let's face this thing together, and you'll win. Like that's exactly what I'm doing. That's exactly the process I'm going through. Of having lost everything, God asked me to walk away from everything,
right,
and basically start over. But he's asking me to start over with him now.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I wanted to be in control.
Yeah.
I thought I knew better, and life, it worked out on me, and it put me in. It was not fun. So now, I finally surrendered, and I'm like, all right, I want you to call the shots.
Right.
I want you to give me my battle strategy, and I'm going to trust you.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different experience.
Yeah, no, 100%. You touched on a few things, and this is something that's been in my own head for a minute that I've been kind of pondering over for like the last couple weeks, but I'm in awe of God's willingness to continually put his hands in the mess and partner with people. And I'm trying to emulate that in my own life because I think I do have a natural inclination to cut people off,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I just need to distance myself and space myself. But I even think about, I could pull from any story in the Bible, but even just in my own personal life, the many times that if I've done things, which I have, that are wrong or what I truly believe is against God's will, and that hurt him, but he's always willing to open his chest up. He never approaches me with this posture.
Yeah.
He's always like, and so I trying to emulate that for myself, when we talk about getting over past pains, I'm like, God opens himself back up.
Yeah.
And not foolishly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he does open himself back up for the opportunity for reconciliation,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that's really been pressed upon me. Like I'm in awe of that aspect. Like when I'm praying or when I'm praising,
Yeah.
you know, I'm praising that aspect of God because I admire it.
Yeah.
It's
It's so powerful. He's just been dealing with me about past relationships that I thought I was over and forgiven and all that stuff. But there was a deeper layer that I didn't know about
Yeah.
that he wanted me to begin to work through. And it's just, you know, he only gives us what we can handle. And he's very patient to do things as we can deal with it. Like I couldn't, if he had asked me to deal with this layer 2 layers before, I
Right.
couldn't have done it.
Yeah. That's good.
But now my heart's in a different place. And so he can go deeper with the forgiveness.
Right.
You know, and it's a very layered process.
Yeah.
You know, it's a beautiful thing. But I think the key to this whole season and what you're talking about
Yeah.
is surrender. Because when we're able to trust him and we're not afraid to lose anything and everything for him, then nothing can stop us.
Right.
It's when we're afraid of losing
Yeah.
that we get stuck.
Yeah, that's true.
But if he can have it all at any time, well, that means that person that hurt you before, if he's like, I want you to engage them again,
Right.
you got it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Right. Right. You're like,
You know, I want you to give your house away. Sure. Because he owns all the houses.
yeah.
Like, what am I afraid of?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
I want you to sell your business. Okay. It's yours anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like it's such a liberating and refreshing place to be.
You know what's interesting? So in the past, I would hear these testimonies about how people would be like, yeah, and then I gave 90% of my income away. And you know, it would lead to this like great thing that opened up. And it was a really good testimonies, you know. Back when I was younger, I even remember it from when I was like 10, 11, and 12. And I was like, you know, I'd always say in my mind, I'm like, oh God, I wouldn't want to. I'm like,
I'm not there
don't
yet.
do that to me. Don't do that to me. Do that to somebody else. I'm happy that it worked out for him.
That's hilarious.
He said,
Oh man.
Yeah, somebody said that to me.
Yeah.
When I walked away from my career.
Oh.
And somebody said, I'm going to sow this seed into Brad's life because I don't want to have to go through what he's going through. Let's make this a transaction.
let me do my part now. Just I don't think I need to double back on
A
that.
high five as he's walking by. Go ahead and do the thing.
Yeah.
Do it for both of us.
Yeah, do it for both of us.
Yeah.
But I would say now I'm coming into a place where I'm really like, I feel more prepared to like whatever it is. And if there's something that I'm willing to not give up, then it seems that I come head to head with that pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know, no matter what it is, you can't even say that it's coincidence at this point. You know, mathematically, it's just not.
Yeah.
It's not natural.
Yeah. I mean, look, y'all know the story of Achan, right?
The
Israelite who stole a god, an idol,
oh yeah.
buried it in his tent.
Yeah.
In the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God was like, he stopped all progress.
Right.
Like they couldn't defeat their enemy. Just think about that.
Yeah, that's true. Because one person
Because one person or one family or whatever
Yeah.
buried an idol, and it affected the entire nation.
Wow.
And it shut down God's progress in the nation.
He said, we're not going forward until we address this.
Yeah. That's how he is with us. And so when things shut down in our lives and we're spinning our wheels and not gaining ground and not expanding, that's probably what is the issue.
Mm-hmm.
We've buried something
Buried something.
and we're avoiding it or hiding it. And the Lord's just trying to, in his mercy and his love and his kindness, help us to see, hey, there's something you got to deal with. And so they very methodically went through and found it.
Right.
And the Lord helped them to find it.
Yeah.
Because the people hiding it they weren't like, oh, it's me. Hey, I did it. I stole it. They had to cast lots, right?
Right.
And whittle it down.
Yeah.
And that's the way we are with him too. We're not coming forward being like, hey, I hid this from you. Haha, I got this idol.
Right.
He's having to like help us see what we can't see. Because fear is so good at hiding and deceiving and distracting and blaming. And so I think if we can start to read the signs correctly,
right,
and begin to take responsibility,
Yeah.
we can come out of it.
Yeah.
We can overcome divorce. We can overcome,
right,
a prodigal child leaving.
Right.
We can overcome whatever it is in our life, financially, being in a mess.
right,
Because God, his ways are prosperous. His ways show us and teach us how to expand. And so that's what he's trying to bring into our lives. And that's what he's trying to build in the earth, is he's trying to build hearts that reproduce his glory.
right,
And we all can do it. We all have the ability.
yeah,
Like wisdom, I've been reading about wisdom and Proverbs. You don't have to be smart to get wisdom.
no,
Like wisdom makes its appeal to the foolish.
right,
That means anybody
yeah,
can become wise.
right,
Anybody can get unstuck.
yep,
Anybody can be healed
right,
and reconciled.
Yep.
Like, otherwise God's not cool. Like, So
That's a good way to put it.
yeah, there's hope for all of us.
Right.
Yeah. I like to, let me look at myself and my life. And I think the biggest thing is just like, I feel like a lot of people have this problem when it comes to like, where's that control come from? And it might not be any one thing, but I find myself, I'm like, yeah, I want to do it God's way. I was like, can I have this though? Like, this is my life. It's not my life. It's God's life. He gave it to me.
He bought it.
Yeah,
It's literally
Purchased
not my life. And so there's times where I think, I'm like, I just want this to go well. Can I have this one thing go well? Can I have this one thing? But it's not mine to have. It's not even my decision to make whether it goes well or not.
and sometimes it's really like, you can have this. It's just not the time.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not the time that I'm.
Yeah.
And we're so
Yeah.
fixated. Like
Right.
I have people right now where their lives aren't going the way they want them to go. It doesn't mean their life is bad. It means their life's not going the way they want it to go.
Right.
Right.
And I feel like I'm the most guilty of this. So then we clinch.
Yeah.
And we like begrudgingly are going through it because we can't stop it. And if we unclinched and accepted it, it probably just passed straight through.
Yeah.
But some sort so stiff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then you're taking more shots than you even need to take. He's like, I didn't even want you to do all that.
Yeah.
We're like, oh. And then you're like, God release me. And you're holding on to it.
Yeah.
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 I do that a lot.
I mean, look.
He gets to watch it as like a play.
Look.
But I do that. I gotta out myself. I do that a lot.
We all have issues,
you know,
that's for sure.
So
We're all like little kids.
yeah,
Trying to learn to trust dad.
in the
Right.
in the playground.
Right.
It's like, the little kid wants to run into the street.
Yeah.
Because there's a toy. But the father sees there's a truck coming.
Mhm.
So we have to understand he sees what we don't see. And he
Right.
knows what we don't know. So why are we fighting and kicking and screaming to try and get something he knows is not good for us to have?
He's gonna buy us a better toy.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, he knows what we need.
Right. And it comes in like phases, right? And we're coming up against time, so I'm gonna wrap it. But it really comes in phases of you understanding his character, and then you believing his character, right?
Yeah.
So you have to understand his character.
But we don't
first,
always
and then-
understand it.
Yeah, we don't understand it. That's true.
But we will.
The will, we will.
Yeah.
But the guidelines of who he's presented himself to be based off the word of God, right?
Yeah.
And then truly believing that, and in practice, believing in practice, not just saying I believe or I get it,
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
It's like believing in practice is the next step, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, always a pleasure to have
Same.
you on.
Same.
I'm excited for this book that's gonna come out.
Yeah.
And we're going to have you on 2 or 3 more times. So if you got anything from this podcast episode and you have questions for Brad, send your questions in, comment any kind of questions or any comments you have below, and we'll make sure that we address them next time, because we're going to have him on a few more times before the end of the year, because it's encouraging.
Awesome. Same. Thank you, guys.
We're gonna have a Bradathon. I'm really excited. I love this guy. This guy makes my life better. I hope I do something for him. But God is good.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Thanks for having me.
Dude, appreciate you, bro.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys.
We're going to keep doing this. So
Awesome.
we're going to have more fun.
Yeah.
So make sure to like and subscribe. Please, if any part of this message resonate with you, please comment in the comments below. We love to have conversations with everyone watching. We love feedback. What in your life are you afraid to lose control over that's actually stopping your progress and moving forward?
Yeah.
All right. Take care and be well.
Appreciate you.